Hey everyone, welcome to another Dodonpachi video, the shmup you cannot get enough of, am I right? So this is a new PB that I set last night, 202 million, a great stepping stone on my overall goal. So my overall goal is to break the Western record for this ship type specifically, which is 390 million set by Airpo. And so it'll be a ways to go from 200 mil to 390 mil, but I think I'm hoping if I keep up at this pace, I'll be beating it within a year or so. That's the goal anyway. And what's really interesting about Dodonpachi and the way PBs work and such is that the jump from a 200 mil to a 300 mil score isn't that hard of a jump, isn't that high of a jump with my current routing and stuff like that. I definitely could do that. I could set a 300 mil score today if I had a really good run. But it's kind of just a matter of really honing in the execution because this game is so punishing, so precise, especially when you get to doing these really tight links and, of course, not dying, not using your bombs, all that's extremely important. But I do think this PB is a big milestone for me because it is the first time in a PB that I've been able to carry the max bonus into the second loop, which is not an easy feat and definitely the reason why I was able to get as high of score as I have been able to get. So what's really cool is this is currently the third highest Western score for this ship type. I just beat Vallejo. He's somewhere around 180 mil. And so, yeah, I'm starting to creep up there to where I want to be. I think the second highest is a 290 mil by Jamers. The thing about Jamers, though, is that this is with the ship type CS, and Jamers ended up switching over to CL, and Jamers actually holds the highest Western score overall for the game with his CL, which is 600 something million. I don't want to misquote it because I can't remember off the top, but it's over 600 million. An amazing, incredible score, an incredible run. If you haven't seen it, go to his channel and check it out because he also leaves really great commentary and stuff on his run. And I'm thinking what's funny is that if I ever do beat Airpo's score, which I am planning to, so after I beat Airpo's score, I might actually do a Jamers and switch over to CL to try and break the 600 mil mark. That's kind of my overall goal, is get the Western record with this ship type and then switch over to CL for the 600 mil. I don't think I'll be beating Jamers' score anytime soon, but you never know, right? I could get good enough to maybe even start challenging the higher scores at some point. Dodonpachi is my favorite shmup, so you all will see me playing this game for a very long time. I just can't seem to get enough of it, and every time I think I've finished with it for a while, I'll play like, okay, I set a new PB, I got the 2-all, I'll move on to a different game. It's just a few months or weeks later I find myself playing Dodonpachi again. There's something about this game that keeps bringing me back to it over and over, if it's not obvious. And so, not too much to say on the run so far. Everything's going well. I'm playing 2P because the black ship is the cool looking ship. That's 90% of the reason why I played 2P. There is a little bit of a scoring advantage in that there's some kind of star bonus or whatever. I'm never going to figure out what the minutia on that is because I really don't care all that much. The other thing is that the 2-3 mid boss is a little bit easier with the 2P ship rather than the 1P ship. The huge trade-off though is that Hibachi is much more difficult on 2P side. So if I ever start going for 2-all runs with this ship, and I will, eventually, so I don't know. I just have to beat the harder Hibachi at this point because I can't divorce myself of the black ship. It's just so cool looking. So anyway, I was happy with that second stage run. I was able to carry the full chain through it, made it through the trickier links. I'm getting much more consistent with the first 3 stages. The thing about the first stage is if I drop this chaining in stage 1 and stuff, I decided to really just not care because I got a little bit of reset syndrome. CS has a surprisingly hard time hitting some of those links in the first stage just because its movement speed with the laser is so damn slow that you have to actually carefully route some of those links with the C ship, with CS specifically. All the other ship types can like sleepwalk their way through those chains in the first stage, but there's a few links there where CS you have to be really on top of it. But they're so low value that I said, well, if I drop the link, screw it, just keep playing, and just consider stage 2 the real first stage of the game. So if I drop my chain in stage 2, I might consider resetting. So I was happy to carry it through this second stage, getting much more consistent with that. The only real tricky link in the second stage is that tank transition, where I'm trying my best not to kill that tank too soon. That's what seems to always get me. Stage 3, I don't bother with chaining, really, because at this point, it's a bit more of a time investment than I think is necessary for me, but I might end up learning a little bit of the chaining in this stage at some point, because they're just these little bite-sized chains. You're not carrying the chain all the way through the stage and stuff like that. I really do feel like stage 3 is more of an homage to Dodonpachi than the rest of the game. It feels much more like a Dodonpachi stage than a Dodonpachi stage. The cancel section, I really need to upgrade my cancel section strategy. I'm using my own kind of jank routing from forever ago, and I know that there's more efficient ways to do that. So that's something I'll probably be updating. By the time you see my next PB, I'll have a better cancel route there where I get more off those cancels, because you can get quite a bit of score off those cancels, which is pretty cool. Not too much to say here. I do chain through this section. Sometimes I get up to 58 if I'm doing real good. It all depends on how you kind of go into the section, how far you can carry the chain. 1-3 boss, so I spent, just a little background, before doing this run, I spent about 30 minutes practicing the 2-3 boss over and over, kind of refining the routes on that. And I decided to just basically use my 2-3 boss strategies on the 1-3 boss, even though it's not necessarily all that needed, because the 1-3 boss is much easier than the 2-3 boss. But just to kind of keep myself consistent between the loops, I found that if you can replicate a strategy across both loops, it's probably a good idea. That way you're not getting confused about, oh, which strategy am I supposed to be using in which loop, and you start doing the wrong things in the wrong loops. That's happened to me more than a few times. The big difference, though, is that in the first loop, I don't take out these back turrets, because I do think it actually makes the fight more dangerous. Whereas in the second loop, you take out the back turrets because it makes the fight safer. So, as far as survival, there's a little bit of a difference there. Getting some pretty generous walls, not too bad. I was happy with that. The run before this, I died on this boss, which is pretty unusual, but sometimes you'll get a really jank wall out of it, and if you're not on your toes, you can get trapped, and that's what happened to me. Opening up to 1-4, okay, now we're really getting into the scoring aspect of the game, as far as, okay, now let's start, this is where you start piling on a real score, basically. Really happy with my opening section there. Was able to chain that opening section, one of the harder links in the first loop, at least for me. Yeah, that was textbook link there on that building. The big part about that link that's tricky is if you're too heavy on the laser, you blow up that building too early and you drop it. And if you're too light on the laser, you don't blow up the building, but your chain drops before the building can blow up. So you really do need to be pretty precise with how much damage you're putting on that building. This link I've gotten quite a bit better at. I was actually showing Plaz last night a trick on how to do that, which is that bee there, your instinct is to immediately collect that bee, but it's actually better to kill the first tank that pops out and then collect the bee. And I was so frustrated by this chain drop right here. What happened is just a simple miscalculation of how many tanks are coming out. I overestimated the amount of tanks coming out. I need to work more on the queues for that one, but the queues really aren't that good. So I may need to just start manually counting the tanks. Hopefully my brain has the ability to do that, because that might actually be the best way so I don't have that ridiculous chain drop. Really, that's one of those chain drops where it's like, I really shouldn't be dropping this. That was a silly mistake. That's kind of the story of my first loop. Overall, it's a very, very good first loop. Probably my best ever played in a real run. But at the same time, I was frustrated because I lost a lot of score just to really silly mistakes. So here we go, though. Picking up the chain where it left off, which, is better than nothing. The real trick to this link here, I used to have trouble with it. I've gotten pretty dang good at it. The real trick with it, though, is that you need to make sure you kill that red chopper that's in front of the big tank, then it comes down. If you don't, that red chopper will basically wall you in and kill you. And the way you make sure it's dead is, I was moving a little bit too late. So if you're too late, the red chopper pulls behind the tank and he's protected and you're dead. So you have to make sure to be early enough to catch him before he gets behind that tank. That's actually really critical. Otherwise you don't just drop the chain, you get killed or have to bomb, which is no bueno. Coming into the 1-4 boss. I actually can't remember if I managed to get the glitch or not on this thing. So there's a fun glitch on this boss and in the second loop where if you kill it during a certain phase, it gets stuck on screen. If you've watched my Dodonpachi videos before, you'll be familiar with it. The way you do it is you need to make sure his health is, you see the H there, it needs to be right on the end of that H. And then you need to set up this pattern here. I found this is kind of the best way to do it. And then move up. And I found that if I push him up a little bit, it seems to give me a little bit of a wider window for catching him with the glitch. Here I am celebrating a bit. So what's funny is during this run, I didn't have my chat open on Twitch or anything like that. So I was having to, and I didn't have my hand cam on. So I was trying to express myself with my input display as much as possible. I was very happy with getting that boss lock. I was frustrated with the chain drop on that bunker, but other than that, this has been a textbook run. One of my highest splits coming into stage 5 in a real run. So my, whatever you call it, like save state practice and stuff, I do come into this stage with much higher scores because I didn't drop that chain. But basically outside of dropping the chain there, this has been a picture perfect run so far. Here we come into that. There's a drop. That section there, I don't beat myself too much if it drops. Obviously it is a pretty significant point loss if I manage to chain the rest of the stage. But at the same time, that's just one of the more finicky aspects of this. This is where I get really frustrated here. So this right here, I have to bomb. I do end up kind of recovering my max bonus by picking up the bomb, but it's one less. So it should be ×4 or ×5. Now it's ×4. And I dropped the chain. That was a huge point loss overall for many reasons. And I was really frustrated because I kind of just made a very uncharacteristic choice of, instead of crossing over and killing the tanks like I do every single time, for some reason I crossed left. I got in my head a little bit. It made no sense why I did that, and it was like, that's why I bombed, because I was like, okay, that mistake was so stupid, there's no recovering from it. But to add to my frustration a little bit is I managed to land all the links. So had I not done that, I would be sitting on a really fat chain right now and, an overall higher PB. This is why 300 mil is not that far away, because even though this is my PB of 200 mil, had I nailed all this stuff in the first loop, I could have seen myself getting a 300 mil score. And a little bit, carried my max a little bit further and cleaned up my second loop a little bit more. But it's not that far away, even though it seems like it. It really is not that far away. It just comes down to really getting consistent with hitting all my links and making sure everything's just really precise and on point. The boss fights too, all that stuff. I think my boss fights went really well in this first loop, though. We'll see as we go. Got through, so a 500 hit chain still. Right? Was that 500 hit chain? I kind of missed that. Maybe, yeah, I think it was 500 hits. That's not too bad. Normally it's 820 or so, and that's significantly more valuable than a 500 hit chain, but still better than nothing. I think, so my overall splits, when I'm doing save states and stuff, which aren't that unrealistic, by the way. So I could just hit my splits in any run at this point. I'm getting to that point where I'm consistent enough to do that. But it's going to be 150 mil for my first loop score if I, hit all my chains and everything like that. And so, and then carrying that max bonus in the second loop, I could hit 300 mil. I think around this around 2.4, 2.3, somewhere in there. So yeah, it's definitely not off the table. In fact, if I pulled everything off, I could beat Airpo's score now, but my second loop is a little bit too far away for me to be able to really comfortably say that'll happen anytime soon, because I do need to put in work on the second loop. The nice thing about CS, though, as a ship, is that I feel like it is very strong in the second loop compared to the other ships. So I actually feel like the first loop with CS is in some ways more challenging than with the other ship types. And when I say the other ships, I mean the other like viable good ships, not like BL or whatever, but like AL and CL. I think both of those ships actually have an easier time in the first loop than CS because faster boss fights. And CS has a problem where it's a little bit too powerful sometimes, where you overkill things to the point where your chains drop. Whereas CL and AL have a little bit more precision, especially being laser types. And so but the trade-off is once CS gets into that second loop, it does work on those stages, I think, much more effectively than the other two. Though I do think CL is just overall a very good all-around ship. That's why I'm considering switching to it for my 600 mil, just because I think CS is... It's funny, like CS and AL are mirror images of each other. AL is a beast in the first loop. I think it's much easier to play AL in the first loop than the other ship types as far as getting consistent chains, the boss fights, all that. It's a very strong ship in the first loop. But once you take AL into the second loop, you're in for a rough time. That's where the ship, I think, struggles more because it doesn't have enough coverage for everything. But I think CS is the opposite, where it kind of struggles in the first loop because it's so slow and overpowered in some ways as far as chaining and hitting the links. Its laser speed and startup are really slow, so it's actually kind of hard to hit. You have to be really precise with your shot switching because it takes forever to get into laser, whereas AL and CL are like way faster. But anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. So let's talk about this stage so far. Chains falling apart. I wasn't all that surprised. I still need to do more work in stage 6 as far as my consistency with my links in real runs. So in stage practice, I do fairly well, but there's still more improvement. Again, this is a stage. The opening sections are a little bit tricky with CS because you have to do some lasering, and the ship is so slow, and the laser is so bad at comboing that sometimes it'll reset and you'll drop your combo off a laser reset. So you'll kill one of the enemies with your laser, but by the time it flies up to the top of the screen to contact the next enemy, your chain will drop. This is a CL unique thing. I don't think our CS unique thing. The laser ship types never have to worry about this sort of thing. But yeah, it happens to me a few times. It's really frustrating. And it happens in this stage specifically on certain sections. Right there, still a 436, pretty good. 630 is about my, practice amount. So, again, much more valuable, but still 430, it's something. It's not nothing, right? This part right here, I always seem to struggle with in real runs for some reason. In stage practice, it's never an issue, but in real runs, I always am second-guessing myself. Just the pressure, though. When you get this far in the first loop, and especially since I've never no-missed. Well, I did bomb, but I haven't no-missed and carried most of my max bonus into the second loop before. So I was really nervous at this stage, at this point right here. So 1-6 boss. Apparently Prometheus calls him the Guardian, so I'm assuming that is his actual name or a close approximation of his actual name, so that's what I'll call him as well. Even though the Guardian sounds, to me, that sounds like a much more kind name than this damn boss destroys. I'd call it like the Gatekeeper or something like that, because this is the boss that prevents you from getting your high score or not most of the time. This is where your runs come to die, basically, especially the final pattern. Really happy with my adjustment on the second pattern there. That's a simple pattern, but it's a pattern for a long time I've always kind of struggled with, because I didn't realize how important your initial position in that pattern is. So even stuff like being a little bit too high on screen or a little bit too low on screen causes the overall pattern to change. And so I never could find a consistent way to get through that pattern outside kind of a general game plan. But I found if I just go in this exact same spot every single time, I'm having much more consistency, so that's good. I did let off the gas a little bit as far as the damage so that he would move back before doing this. So Plasmo made a comment to me that I think was really helpful. I think it is. I can't say it is for sure because not enough time has gone by to tell. But he made a little comment to me here saying that maybe I should stay up a little bit higher during this fight than I normally do. So I usually would hug the back of the screen. But I think just moving up a tiny little bit, like you're seeing right here on the screen, does help my overall consistency, because I think you're doing a little bit more damage by doing that. You see him celebrating. And also because I think it just gives you a little bit more wiggle room with your dodges if you move up just this slight amount. If you go too high up, then you're just adding more risk. But if you do just this slight amount upwards, I think that was kind of the last hidden ingredient to getting a little bit more consistent. Plus that I've just been really clutch this run so far. That's why I'm saying it might be a little bit too early to say, because I could have just been playing really clutch. And so coming into the second loop, carrying the max bonus, huge deal for me. Like I said, I've never been able to do this before, and this is basically the ingredient to getting a very high score in Dodonpachi, is carrying this max bonus into the second loop, because that's what makes the second loop scoring much more valuable. I mean, there's more reasons, but that's the main reason. So coming into loop or stage 2-1, my thought was very simple: do not die. Who cares about these baby chains? Let's just focus purely on safety 100% first. Because look, I'm just racking up those max bonuses. It's not, to me, especially, you know, this being a little bit uncharted territory, me doing this well, I was like, okay, forget chaining this stage. Like, who cares? And I did get a little 100 hit chain there. You usually get 187, something like that. This was the lottery, and I rolled sevens, baby. I got a good roll. So I call that boss the lottery, because in the second loop, he can give you really easy, generous patterns like that one there, or he can give you wicked, brutal patterns. And it's random. It's RNG, which one you get. And yeah, and I did not want to bomb, so I was either going to have to dodge this really brutal pattern, or get lucky and get the easy pattern. I got lucky, so there is some luck elements, though. If you're good enough, you can dodge both, right? So there's some you know what I mean, some luck to it, but it's not 100% luck, because if you're just really good, you can dodge it no matter what. It's just can be much more difficult depending on what pattern you get. Right here, the real problem with this boss is the health management, where you need to be very careful about how you're damaging him. Where if you damage him too much, he'll go into this immediate kill pattern, but if you don't damage him enough, you won't kill him before he goes into the kill pattern. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I basically threaded the needle there perfectly, where I did enough damage on him where he went into that spinning pattern at the end there rather than the kill pattern. And so the spinning pattern gave me plenty of time to kill him. So I just threaded the needle perfectly there on the amount of damage. 2-2, the 22, this is the stage that I've practiced a lot in the second loop. So this is the stage I've been putting the most second loop practice into, because it's the one I run into the most, right, in the second loop. And I had a lot of trouble with this part right here where the tanks spawn. And I thought, okay, I've been working on chaining that and stuff, because I do want to full chain this stage in the second loop and everything. And I can, but I was like, okay, at this point, let's just focus on the 200 mil. So I'm going to forego possibly chaining there for safety, which I did do. So I did lose out on my chain a bit, about 130 hits, 100, something like that. Maybe 100 hits, actually. And so, but the rest of the stage, I do know how to chain safely. So here we go. Coming into the mid-boss. The funny thing is nowadays I'm almost more confident in the second loop version of this fight rather than the first. So the first loop, obviously, surviving it is much easier, but linking it and chaining it can actually be pretty difficult, because, ironically, like I said, I kill the boss too fast, and then you can drop the chain. Where in the second loop, you don't have to really worry about that. You just have to worry about not getting killed, and I found a really nice little strategy there. I think it could apply to both ship types as well, both CL and CS, where you just point blank the crap out of him, do a lot of damage on him, and then just strategically kill all the smaller ships and stuff like that, and the tanks, without having to worry about chaining off him and all that. And I think it turned out really well. Obviously, it worked in the run, and I think I'm pretty consistent at doing it. So, 22 tank boss, This used to be a huge barrier for me, but I've sort of discovered my own little strat of how to do this. And I don't know if other players quite follow this same strategy as myself. But if you don't, and you're having problems on this boss, I say follow this strategy because I think it works really well. Take out the right side because he can't stop you really from taking out the right side. Leave the left side. Leave his health before the G for the parts where he shoots the cannon at you. And then on the last, just before the last one, then you can start damaging him before that last shot. And then the trick here is you need to go up and point blank the crap out of him after that, so that if you do a really aggressive point blank there, by the time he does the big spread pattern, which can spell death if you get bad luck on that thing, you do enough damage on him to really minimize the amount of time that pattern's on the screen. I think it can work for all ship types. In fact, it'd probably be more effective with the other ship types because they're just better than CS in boss fights because of his bad laser. CS is a man, I guess, because of its bad laser. So here we go. 2-3. I am thrilled. I am popping off right now because I've made it so far carrying this max bonus. No missing. I'm like, yeah, I'm really feeling myself, especially after that great boss fight. And I'm thinking, okay, let's dodge this shit. I'm feeling in the zone here. Dodging 2 patterns. Everything's going well. Clip. Ugh. That I was so frustrated. But I tried to say, well, it's okay. Let's not worry about it. Let's just focus on getting 200 mil. My mentality was surprisingly well. I think it's because I just felt like it was a matter of time before something would clip me, because I hadn't done a whole... I have practiced the second loop quite a bit, but it is a different experience to get into it in a real run. You know, everything's more heightened. And so I was really frustrated by that, because I could have also bombed him for safety and then picked up the max bonus here. But my thinking was that, okay, realistically, the 2-3 boss is going to destroy my max bonus. So I thought, let's take the risk and try and carry as much max bonus into the 2-3 boss as possible. But unfortunately, I got clipped there. Survival-wise, it really doesn't matter because I'm not going for the 2 walls. And the resources to get to Hibachi and stuff, I'm pretty consistent at this point. And it doesn't really affect my scoring all that much, which is kind of interesting. So the death affected my scoring a lot because I lost the max bonus. But as far as survival-wise, it's really not that big of a deal. And I have even sort of considered maybe start doing strategic suicides if I end up dying and you getting low on bombs or something for max bonuses. I'm still thinking about that. You wouldn't do that as a super player because you'd want to save those lives for Hibachi and then potentially cash them out for 1000 mil. Or 10 mil, sorry. Not 1000 mil. 10 mil. But since I know that's off the table for me at this stage, I was like, maybe. And I kind of do that at the end there. Though, I'll point that out as we get there. Juju did point out that's probably not a wise strategy, and it wasn't, but I'm not as good at the point math as my fellow Dodonpachi players. I just kind of have a general idea of how the points work and stuff and go from there. So I was like, well, anyway, I'll talk about that when we get there. 2-3 boss, the Jordan. I need to find a nickname for this guy, besides just the nasty, something like that. That's what I think about it in my head anyway. Yeah, so there's no max bonus involved here, so this boss fight won't be as interesting as it usually is, because I'm just going to use my bombs and resources to take him out. Still using some of my strategies like the opening there, because if you don't use any strategies, I think it takes like 4 or 5 bombs to take him out. So I tried to make it so I'd still be able to, survive after bombing him and everything like that. Perfect. 288 hits. That's pretty healthy hit count too. The second loop, your boss hits start to be more valuable, which is nice. So here we go. 2-4. I can chain 2-4. So this is one of the few second loop stages, basically 2, 22, and 24, that I'm getting tired of saying 2, 4, 2, 2, 2, 1. I'm going to start just referring to them as like 21, 22, 24, just for the sake of it. But anyway, so 24, I can full chain this in the second loop already. It's my best chaining stage in the second loop, besides 22. But I can't remember what goes wrong here, but let's see here. So far, so good. I need to work on the opening section there, though, because it's actually pretty easy to chain the opening section of this stage. This is a trademark mark chain, by the way. No other player does this, but I think it's actually really good. You just go over there and shoot it from the left and sort of just make your way across. You probably don't get as many hits because you're not lasering, but for the amount of hits you lose, you know, a few hits, the consistency and ease of use, I think, is very valuable. That's a CS only strat, though. You can't do it with the other ship types, only CS. Maybe CL can kind of do a weird version of it. When I start playing CL, I guess I'll see. Here we go. So far, so good. Getting nice and close, putting on the damage. Very, very, very good. I'm feeling myself now. I'm like, okay, we're chaining the second loop. We're gonna make massive score here. That was so stupid. That made me so mad. The reason why I died there is because in the first loop, those tanks don't shoot you, or they basically don't shoot you, or if they shoot you, it's like really gentle, easy to dodge shot. I forgot in the second loop that those tanks coming down, those little baby tanks, they will just blast you in the face. They don't care. So I ended up getting blasted in the face when I wasn't expecting it. That really frustrates me. But lesson learned for next time, right? We're still on good pace to get that 200 mil, though. That was a big loss because I could have gotten a really huge chain there otherwise. So here we go. This boss fight here. I can no miss this boss fight as well. Yeah, get the glitch on him and stuff like that. Using basically the exact same setup and strategy. It's just a little bit trickier because the boss is more aggressive, but you're following the same blueprint. I have seen better CS players than myself one loop the first 1-4 boss where they don't need to go through 2 cycles of this attack. They can just do the 1 cycle, but that relies on doing really precise point blanking and stuff like that. And I thought, screw it, I'll just do the 2 cycle on both of them because I'm getting pretty good at doing the 2 cycle on the first loop anyway. And if I miss it in the first loop, I'm pretty good at just fighting the boss straight up. Whereas the straight up fight in the second loop is insane. So thank Akeda for that glitch, because otherwise in a real run, beating this boss without bombing would be a real nightmare without that glitch. But thankfully there is that glitch. So here we go. 181 mil. I'm like, ooh, 20 mil in 2 stages. I'm not particularly good at chaining either of these stages, so let's see how this goes. But I am feeling myself. As far as survival-wise, I'm doing great. All I need to do is get to the big B, basically. So death there. Not too surprising. I just need to work on this section. This is where I'm kind of like, well, maybe that's okay, because I got a suicide into a max bonus there, so now I'm carrying a max bonus that I wouldn't have been carrying otherwise because of my bomb count. So I was like, well, maybe that was actually a good place to die, because I was going to die somewhere in the stage, and if there was a place to die in the stage, that was probably it. So I think that actually was, in a weird way, a beneficial death. Coming in, feeling myself, I'm like, okay, we got 200 hits. I can chain this into the Hall of Hell here, so let's see if I pull it off. Coming up, damaging him, and there's the mistake. So where was the mistake, and why did I get in that shit position? I tried to get out of it. I should have just bombed, but how did I get in that shit position? Well, it's simply because I didn't get forward fast enough. I didn't put enough damage on the tank and everything fast enough. I was a little bit behind schedule there, and that's what happened. That's the way the second loop in Dodonpachi works. If you get behind schedule just a little bit, you get walled off and die, basically. So you always have to be, even though it's scary, you have to be surprisingly aggressive in the second loop. And on a lot of occasions. Not all the time, but at a lot of points. So here we go, Hall of Hell. I'm just going to bomb my way through it shamelessly because that's the smart thing to do at this point. I did miss out on my big juicy cancel there. But, you know, whatever. To me, just carrying these resources is more important. So we just need 10 more mil. Sort of a mission accomplished situation there, but I'm getting a little bit nervous because getting 10 mil in the next level is possible, of course. And I get the rest of the points on this stage, but it's not guaranteed. Even if I do well, I might not get enough points just because I haven't really routed out that stage and the chaining and all that. So it's basically like, can I get that with a few broken chains and such? Here we go into the 2-5 boss. This boss really is not that much more difficult than the first loop, and in fact, in some cases it feels easier than the first loop. But overall, I would say it's harder because of the ending. But yeah, the opening sections and all that are basically the same. Thank you, safe spot, because otherwise this would be a brutal boss. I like how many of the bosses have these tiny little flaws that allow you to exploit the fight, but in a fun way. I think it's like a happy accident with how good the boss fights are, because I don't think they meant, maybe they did mean for you to do some of these things. I doubt the lock glitch on the 4 boss, but maybe they did intend for you to go up and fly in this cradle here and all that in the 5 boss. So coming down, I'm out of bombs. I want to still no miss this though, because I want a nice healthy lead coming into the next stage here, because I am pretty much going to need to get through this stage, the majority of it, to get the 200 mil. And I did not want to die with 199 mil. I did not want that to happen, and it is very possible that could happen. So that was my fear coming into this. I hate this opening section here, but I pulled it off. Ooh. Clutch, clutch, clutch. I remember playing pretty clutch into this stage with this life here. Not going to do any chaining. Nope. We're just trying to stay alive. There is a way, it's pretty precise, but there is a way to sort of chain this while speed killing those tanks. Just off of using those B uncovers. I've done it a few times before. It's really hard to do, and probably not the consistent way to do it, but I'll explore that when I start practicing this stage a little more. So going for the speed kill on these guys, much more important than anything, because of how aggressive their bomb drops or whatever their shot drops are in the second loop. So far so good. I could have moved up, down, and around again. I haven't even routed 2-6 all that much, barely any. So any kind of mistakes and stuff, you know, not a surprise, basically, right? I'm not sitting there like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I dropped the chain, because I kind of have just a vague idea of what I'm doing at this point. Oh man, see, had I known what was coming there, I could have gotten around that fairly simply, but I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Didn't do enough damage on the tank, so I have to bomb there. Not that big of a deal though, because I knew I was going to be bombing plenty anyway. So here we go into this chain here. This is one of my least favorite links in the stages, in the stage, both 1 and 2nd loop. Pretty good overall though. I get walled out there. So this is where I make a very controversial and probably dumb decision, but it is an intentional decision. You'll see what I do. So I bomb. Then I think to myself, oh shit. That was intentional. I promise you, that death was intentional, because I was like, oh shit, I need to kill myself and try and get the max bonus. You see how close I am? because I knew there was like this long period of spawning before the boss spawned. So I took the gamble and was like, maybe if I die and get the max bonus, I'll gain enough max to hit 200 mil before the boss spawns. But I didn't. Then I was like, remember I told you my fear? 199 mil. I was like, oh well, I may need to edit that out so I don't demonetize myself. But I was thinking, FFF, no freaking way am I going to lose to this boss with 199 million. I refuse. So this is actually some of the most clutch playing I've played in a real run in a long time. Not as clutch as my Hibachi and my 2-all, but pretty close, because this is not an easy fight even with all these bombs, because you have to bomb spam him at the end, especially with CS. If you're world record tier, you can dodge this stuff, but most people, even like Jambers and stuff, will bomb spam their way out of this. I'm like, okay. So I had to dodge all those other patterns well. Then I'm like, oh, do I have enough? Be very careful, okay. And then right here I was like, oh, okay. I think I got it. Bomb, move back, fly forward. I can't tell you how relieved I was that I did not die with 109. I would not do this upload if I died with 199 million. And I broke 200 mil. I was like, so happy. Look, I'm spinning my controller. I'm so happy. And at this point, I'm like, I'm dead. You know, I got no bombs. I'm coming into Big B. It's just a death. So let's just play. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like basically doing a little victory lap where none of this really matters. I'm not going to kill the Big B. I'm not really going to get many more points. It's just kind of like, okay, how long can I hold on just flying around and doing stuff? Kind of just for fun. So I die. Not a big deal. Super happy. Broke the 200 mil mark. So next up, the next video you'll see from me of playing Dodonpachi like this will be when I break 300 mil. And then the next one when I beat I beat Airbo's score, hopefully. Like, that's the goal anyway. And it may be a bit of a stretch of time in between then, so maybe I'll do some update PBs if I end up stuck in kind of a long period of time. And I saved this snapshot. So I was a little bit nervous because I wasn't monitoring my stream, so I didn't know for sure if Twitch had died or something like that, because I've had Twitch dying on me and stuff. But yeah, note to self, next time I start doing PB attempts, I need to make sure I'm recording it locally as well so I don't run into that. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed that. Let me finish this by thanking my patrons. And also saying that if you're interested in checking out, I now have a Patreon exclusive podcast, Seventh Day Electric. I think it's going really well. People seem to be really enjoying it, and it'll be a weekly podcast. Yeah, I'll be talking. I don't know how else to plug it. So there you go. So Dingo, Anthony A, Ben Wynn, Brian Shiver, Corio, Dunpill 2064, Eric H, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Gus, Kiwi, Joe Angelo, John, Gameboy Guru, Kay, Quentin, Malaise, Mark Sloan, Martin Worrell, Maz, Meher Calendrian, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, Okla Kugels, Point Blank, STG, get those point blanks, Rhizosis, Smacky Factor, Segumo, Turapon, Plasmo, Utakaya. Thanks for watching.